The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.
Welcome to the David Pakman Show. A little bit later, we'll talk to Shirley Phelps Roper from the Westboro Baptist Church. We may have a anonymous-related hoax on our hands. We'll also talk to Frank Emspak from Workers Independent News out in Wisconsin and hear what's going on the ground. I'm just fascinated, Lewis, by this Wisconsin story. I know you've been following it, and there's just so much misinformation going on around the entire scenario, the causes, solution to, and even reporting about what's happening. We can find just an incredible amount of misinformation for really a pretty straightforward situation.
For example?
Well, no, I don't even know where to start. I mean, number one is what's behind these protests of Governor Scott Walker in Wisconsin as a result of the suggestion that he would like to eliminate collective bargaining on many components of one's yearly compensation for public employees. And number one is this idea that there is a huge budget crisis and that it is just so desperate and that it is the result of what public employees make as the result of having collective bargaining. It's just, it could not be further from the truth. And I was starting to do some research on exactly how much money are we talking about here. And did you know, Lewis, that if we sent 150 soldiers back from Afghanistan, that would cover the entire budget deficit in Wisconsin? That's it. But we are being led to believe that this is a union-based disaster, and unions and collective bargaining must be eliminated. It's unbelievable. I mean, go ahead, Lewis.
If that's the amount of money we're talking about, then why is all of this happening in the first place?
You know why. Come on. Lewis is playing coy with us, ladies and gentlemen, but you know why, and I know why, and really people on both sides of the issues know why, and we'll get to that. But the state, Wisconsin, was on course to end 2011 with a budget surplus of $120 million. Okay? Then Scott Walker is elected and signs in 2 business tax breaks and a conservative health care policy that lowers overall tax revenues, among other things. And this was not offset by anything. So he created the deficit from a surplus. Now, Republicans are hoping to deflect attention from that, and they've been doing it successfully. They want to deflect attention from the increasing share of total income and wealth that goes to the richest 1%, while the jobs and ability to bargain collectively for benefits is allowed to just disappear. This is a 3-part strategy, and let's get to what you're talking about, Lewis. What is the source of this? What is really going on? It's very simple. And Alternet outlined this brilliantly. 3-part strategy here. Number 1 is the battle over the federal budget, okay? And what we are seeing there is the squeezing out, we talked about it on the last show, squeeze out the middle-class programs under the guise of fiscal responsibility, right? We're at a place now where the Tea Party activists and similar faux conservatives have been pushed into this frenzy. I mean, they're literally chomping at the bit, Lewis, under the guise of fiscal responsibility. So they will accept the elimination of policies and programs that benefit them, because they have been bamboozled into thinking that that is going to drive the country bankrupt. That's part 1.
Okay, what's part 2?
Thank you. Lewis is prompting me very well here today. Part 2 is the assault on public employees, okay? And we're seeing that in Wisconsin. And this is blame unions, blame public employees, both their salaries and the fact that there's too many public employees, right? Government is too big. We hear that often. Blame the deficit on that. Blame the debt on that. Blame states going bankrupt on that. And this is part of the corporate power. This is part of going after teachers, for example, who make $30,000 a year and putting that in the media discourse as the problem, with barely a mention of Wall Streeters making millions off of not teaching children, but off of manipulating money.
In some states, what teachers are making is a problem. But Wisconsin isn't one of them.
There are individual cases where teachers have been in the system long enough and they have taken advantage of some policies and are making more than other teachers are making. But you know what? I think teachers deserve it. That's my thing. I think teachers are drastically underpaid. And the fact that the context is that teachers shouldn't make a lot of money is part of the problem. Now, I get it. People will say, well, salaries are commensurate. It's a free market system. And salaries are equivalent to the amount of productivity that that individual is producing. Well, I would reject that completely when it comes to teachers, because how can you say all of the people that are going through their classes and all of the productivity that is derived from that teaching over the life of those students, is that really the game you want to play? So I reject that completely, Lewis.
But there are other factors.
There are other factors.
Class size, amount of schools, amount of teachers.
No question about it. Those factors are there. So that was part two, this attack that we're seeing on public employees. And part three that is being used to manipulate faux conservatives and those that have been riled up into a lather is distortion of the Constitution, okay? And I'm going to tell you right now, Republicans have a head start on that because we have right now one of the most politicized, corrupt Supreme Courts in a long time. $1, one vote, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, come on. So we need to identify the strategy, which I've just done. We need to be aware of it when we think about what are we seeing on TV? What narratives are we hearing about? Teachers getting benefits is that's a waste of money. But no discussion of the Wall Streeters. And don't get bogged down in the minutia, right? Because when we start hearing about the minutia of individual healthcare policies in Wisconsin, you're losing sight of the big picture. 150 troops home from Afghanistan would fix Wisconsin's so-called budget crisis. And you know what? Ending the Afghanistan war altogether would save taxpayers $1.7 billion just in Wisconsin. This is more than 10 times the amount that would be saved if Scott Walker's attack on state rights were successful. Isn't that amazing, Lewis?
The numbers are amazing.
It's just... the way that this has been misrepresented is unbelievable. Now, let's talk about media coverage of this to move on to the next sham and bamboozling that we are seeing. If you turn on conservative media, Fox News led with this over the weekend, but they are not alone in this. You will see the narrative, Lewis, that the Democratic National Committee and Organizing for America are encouraging people to get out and protest, even though they really don't personally want to do that, right? They are being tricked by these liberal organizations and that this is astroturf. It is not grassroots. This is completely wrong, okay? And as we'll talk to Frank Emspak later, and he'll tell us the people protesting are actually the people from Wisconsin that are affected here. No mention of the fact that Breitbart, our friends, the Cook brothers, are bussing in from out of state the pro-Walker protesters. So it is astroturf, ladies and gentlemen. And what does Fox News do? I just flip around, see who's covering what. Fox News, they've got the reporter in the crowd there. All of the signs that you see on the camera are pro-Scott Walker signs or anti-union signs. And Lewis, what happens? They go right over to a middle-aged woman and they say, "Why are you here?" And
find people that have the right answers to their questions.
Exactly. And the woman presents brilliantly. I mean, she's literally, I would be surprised if she didn't just get off the bus and read on her BlackBerry the talking points, why she is there. And it does not seem authentic at all. And you know what? You need fake drama and fake outrage and getting people fired up with false data to even get these people out on the streets to protest in favor of Scott Walker. Why else would they do it?
But what it all comes down to, I mean, on a national level, how can the federal government really affect this? How does what we see here in Massachusetts really have any effect on what's going on over there? I mean, ultimately, it comes down to the people of Wisconsin and what they're able to do, right?
Well, what I'm saying is that the point is to win the media war. If you turn on the TV and it appears the fake on the one hand, on the other hand, right? There's the people for the Walker bill and against the Walker bill. You would say there's a real debate here and people are really split. But that is it's a false premise, right? The people supporting Walker are being overwhelmingly brought in from other states. They don't actually even have a stake in what's happening in Wisconsin.
So this is just part of like a national media war.
It's astroturf. Absolutely.